Hey, this is Ralph, and I'm using Dreamweaver here, and I just want to go over some basic text options for Dreamweaver. So I've just opened up the program. It's giving me, of course, my start menu here. I'm going to go ahead and create a new HTML page. All right, so far so good. Blank page, and let's try this out. How about if I go ahead and call this basic text in Dreamweaver. Enter. I'm going to go ahead and select this text, and I'm going to use my properties panel. The properties panel, by default, it's showing up down here in the lower portion. I'm in the designer layout. Properties panel is incredibly helpful, okay? And you got to keep your eye on it. You're going to use it a lot, but it changes. It's a contextual menu. It'll change depending on what you have active, what you've clicked on, what you've selected. Okay, so I've selected right now this text, and in particular, this text is a paragraph. I know that, by the way, because I can see my tag selector right down here in my status bar. It's in the lower left here of my document window. I've got a paragraph selected. Body of the page, the paragraph that I've got selected. My properties panel shows HTML controls and CSS controls. I'm going to kind of focus on HTML controls first. It's currently a paragraph. I'm going to change it to a heading 1. So now that text is a heading 1, not a paragraph. See? Tag selector, H1 within the body. Okay, I'm going to put in some more text here. Okay, I've just put in a bunch of text. Basically, I just copied some generic lorem ipsum text, which is standard filler in web design and print media and stuff like that. So now I've got several paragraphs. Look at my tag selector. If I click on this P tag here, I've just selected that third paragraph. If I click on this paragraph and select the P tag in the tag selector, I've selected that first paragraph. So basically what we can tell without even looking at the HTML here is in the body of my page, I've got a headline 1, then I've got 1 paragraph, 2 paragraphs, 3 paragraphs. If I jump over to split view, we'll actually see that, okay? There's the body of my page. There's the heading 1, okay? There's my first paragraph, and then I've got second and a third paragraph right after that. So you can kind of see the code that Dreamweaver is writing for us. Let me head back over to design view instead of split view. Okay, let's do a couple little quick changes here. I'm going to go ahead and select this first chunk of text, lorem ipsum, and I'm going to convert that to bold. Okay, so check this out. Notice in my properties panel, I'm HTML active. Okay, that means it's going to modify the HTML of my page as opposed to modifying the style sheets of my page. A little bit more in style sheets in a bit. Okay, so I'm going to modify the HTML of my page. So text is selected, HTML properties panel. I'm going to click the B for bold. There we go, and now that text is bold. Notice in my tag selector, though, the strong element or the strong tag was used. Okay, so strong by default will bold things. So the strong tag will create some bold text. And if I look at this in split view, we'll see it right in here. See, the words lorem ipsum are contained within a set of strong tags, and that's within my set of paragraph tags. Okay, so that takes care of that. I could, of course, also do some italicizing, which will use the emphasis tag. So now my text is bold and italics. If I click on this, notice that my nesting indicates that my strong element is within my emphasis element. Okay, actually this would have worked either way, but this is the way it's been structured. So strong is within emphasis, but this text, lorem ipsum, is both emphasized and strong, or italicized and bold. Okay, let's try another thing here that will really kind of stand out to us. Okay, what if I make it into a hyperlink? I'm going to go ahead and select that text, and then still in the properties panel, HTML, there's a link option here. Now I've got a couple choices, and I'll do more on links in another video, but basically I can just type in a web address, and that'll work fine. So I'm going to do that now. I'll go and type in a complete web address for CNN. Okay, there we go. And if I just click away, now that text, it's bold, it's italicized, and now it's a hyperlink over to CNN. So that's some basic text formatting that's actually changing the structure of my HTML page. It's modifying, it's adding tags, and things like that. So as you can see here, I've got an anchor tag within a strong tag within an emphasis tag that's within the paragraph tag, which of course is within the body of the page. Okay, so there's some basic text formatting there. Let's try this in a slightly different way. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and select my H1. And by the way, I just did a click and drag. I could have just clicked in it once and then gone to my tag selector and clicked on the H1 in the tag selector, and that would have also selected all the text up there. And this time I'm going to jump down to my properties panel and go into CSS mode. Okay, this gets a little bit trickier, and there's a lot we can do with style sheets or CSS, and we'll do a lot more in another video. But for now, let's just kind of make sure we can distinguish between the differences between these two modes of the properties panel or the properties inspector. Okay, so I've got my heading 1 selected. I'm in CSS mode here. Targeted rule, it says new CSS rule. If I click on this, I've got a number of choices here. I don't want to go into too much detail on this for now, so I'm just going to go ahead and keep it at the default new CSS rule. Okay, I'll kind of explain the pros and cons of going this route versus an inline style. Okay, so I'll keep it at new CSS rule, and I'm going to put in bold. Okay, now notice as soon as I click that bold, it doesn't just bold it for me, it brings up this option here. And we do have to kind of fill this out. So without going into a lot of detail on this one, let's just kind of go through the questions here. Selector type, it says class. That's not really what I want. I actually want to do a tag selector, redefines an HTML element, in this case my H1. Okay, so I'll do that, and there's the H1 it displays. All right, that's okay for now, so I'm just going to click OK. All right, targeted rule is H1. It's bold, which it was bold already, so that's not really too exciting. But let's do this too. I'm going to go ahead and click italics. Look, notice it's been italicized. Okay, and let me do something else here. I'm going to go to my color, and I'm going to change it over to this bright green. Okay, so now my heading is bold, italics, bright green. I'll do one more thing. Let me go ahead and select it again. H1, there it is. It's all selected. I'll go and center it on the page. There we go. So it's bold, italics, green, and centered. So I've made a lot of changes. But notice when I click on this, I don't have a whole bunch of other tags. Now you remember when I made those changes to the words lorem ipsum? Okay, it created these new tags. Anchor tag, strong tag, emphasis tag. But for my heading 1, it's still the plain old H1 tag. And if I look at this in split view, notice that it's just the same old H1 tag. So how does the browser know to make this centered, green, bold, and italicized? Well, it's doing all that with style sheets. So I didn't draw attention to it, but over here on the right in my styles panel, a rule has been created for H1 elements. It's bold, italics, green, that's a hex code shorthand for green, text aligned center. So that's how my heading 1s will look in this particular document. If I were to jump down here and create another headline, okay, and then select it or click on it and select a paragraph and convert it to a heading. Oh, I got to go over to HTML first, HTML properties panel, because I actually have to change the tag. Format, instead of paragraph, I'll make it a heading 1. Check this out. Bold, italics, green, centered. Okay, so the basic concept here is the properties panel has two specific modes. HTML modes will add or modify the actual HTML of the page. Okay, HTML tags, elements, things like that. Whereas in style sheet mode or CSS mode, it's actually creating a style sheet which references the particular element. In my example, I modified the H1 elements on this page using CSS. Okay, so don't get thrown off by this. Bold and italics were in both of these, but they do quite different things, or at least in different ways. Okay, so before you start clicking on things in the properties panel, make sure you know which mode you are in and make sure that's the mode you really want to be in for what you want to accomplish.